A very good evening and welcome to another interesting edition of the program Big Talk, a program where we highlight political discussions in our country, Nigeria. My name is Ubong Osoro, your host on the program tonight as we look at 2027 elections. We look at the state of the nation, we look at policies, politics, and the 2027 general elections. We hope to have tonight joining us Sunday Wugira, who is a lawyer, a politician, and a public commentator, who will be joining us via Zoom from Adamawa as we'll look at the issues that concerns the 2027 general elections and where we have to go as a people, as a country. All right, so we know that a lot of political parties and a lot of politicians have made moves already towards the elections. In Adamawa State, we've seen a former senator, talking about Senator Abu, who has moved from the ADC, as it were, to the Labour Party to run for the office of the governor of the state on the platform of the Labour Party. We've also seen Aisha Binani, who has, also stayed in, moved from the ADC to the NDC to be running for the office of the governor, executive governor of the state, and the political dynamics in the state at this time. Governor Ahmed Fintiri, who was a very strong member of the PDP at the time, has now moved to the APC. What is the realignment going on in Adamawa State, and how will it affect the 2027 general elections? As we speak to somebody who's been on the ground, Mr. Wugira is a lawyer. He's a politician, a very close pal to the governor of the state. As we discuss the politics of Adamawa, we look at 2027 general elections and where we go from here as a people, as a nation in our country, Nigeria. What are the dynamics that we have? All of this will be looked at tonight on the program, people. So welcome to the program as we get into our conversation for tonight. But let's go for a short break, and when we're back, we'll get right into our conversation. Please stay with us.
Politics decides our economy. Politics shapes our security. Politics defines our future. But who is asking the hard question?
Is intimidating governors to our opposition, and some allegations even say monies are offered to the tune of billions of naira to these governors to come to the APC.
On Big Talk, we take politics beyond party lines and press statements. We interrogate policies, challenge power,
and it shall be addressed,
and demand accountability from those who govern, from the presidency to the National Assembly, from state governments to grassroots politics. We break down the decisions that affect your daily life. No propaganda, no political comfort zone, just facts, context, and fearless conversations. Big Talk is where leaders explain, analysts dissect, and the people understand.
2015 elections were not held. They are doing rigging.
Don't just watch politics, question it. Tune in to Big Talk on Global Television every weekday from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Join the conversation.
All right, so the 2027 general election seems to be like a repeat of what we had in 2023. Most of the persons who are on the ballot already, because we've seen political parties who have actually announced some of their candidates, especially presidential candidates. We know those who are the presidential candidates of the different political parties. For instance, the APC has presented Nigerians with the choice of Ahmed Bola Tinubu as the presidential candidate of that political party. The PDP, at this time, we've seen two names prominently being featured. We've seen Sunday Ono, who's a former governorship, candidate of the PDP in Cross River State. He is being signaled as the PDP presidential candidate for the Abdurrahman-led leadership of the party. We've also seen from the PDP Goodluck Jonathan being mentioned as the presidential candidate from the Tanimu Turaki leadership of the party. That's on one end. On the other side, where the AAC has presented Omoyele Sowore as the presidential candidate of the party. He was on the ballot in 2023. Also, Peter Obi was on the ballot in 2023, now on a different platform. In 2023, he ran on the platform of the Labour Party, but now he's running on the platform of a very newly formed political party that was just formed in February of this year, right? The Nigeria Democratic Congress, the NDC. So that's on one end. Then we have a formidable four that we've seen over time in our political race. So almost the same thing that happened in 2023. Alhaji Atiku Abubakar is also on the ballot, but this time around not on the platform of the PDP, but the platform of a political party that was chosen by the opposition coalition to be able to prosecute the election, talking about the African Democratic Congress at this time, right? So we've seen that happen, and Nigerians come to ask questions. Are we going to be expecting something different, or is it going to be the same elections dynamics that we had at that particular time in 2023? All right, so I'm going to be giving you some of the figures of the elections that we had in 2023, as we see. If we can also find it and put it on the screen for you to see. So we could do a little bit of comparison analysis, as we also try to bring in our guests for tonight as we unblemish the conversation to go. All right, so in 2023 general elections, we had a registered voter. Registered voters were 93.47 million. Accredited voters in that election, we had 24.9 million. Voter turnout was just about 26%, the lowest turnout since the return to the Fourth Republic. And the frontline candidates were Bola Ahmed Tinubu of the APC at that time, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar of the PDP, Peter Obi of the Labour Party, and Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso of the NNPP. All right, so President Bola Tinubu scored 8,794,726 votes. So a total of 36.61% of all of the persons that voted in that election, of the 24.9 million voters in that election voted for Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And then we had Alhaji Atiku Abubakar of the PDP closely following with a total result of 6,984,520 votes. So 29% of the entire votes were casted in favor of Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. Peter Obi, in that election of the Labour Party, as it were, scored 6,101,533 votes. So 25% of the entire voting population voted for Peter Obi. And closely following, there we have Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso of the NNPP scoring 1,494,687 votes. So 6.23% of the entire voting voted for Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso. And look at the states, different states won by the different contestants in that particular election. The APC with Tinubu were able to win 12 states. The PDP with Alhaji Atiku Abubakar won 12 states. The Peter Obi also won 12 states, 11 states plus the FCT, so technically 12 states. Then the NNPP, Kwankwaso won 1 state, that was Kano State. Alright, so that was how it was divided, 12, 12, 12. So by the number of states that were won, the first three, that's Peter Obi, Rabiu Kwankwaso and Bola Ahmed Tinubu, won the same number of votes. Alright, so it was a very competitive election with Peter Obi winning the Federal Capital Territory, the FCT, with 281,717 votes. All right, so APC was still able to, complete, retain power, but it wasn't very easy for them. All right, so I think that we now have our guest for tonight who will be joining us to help make sense of this discussion, talking about no other person than a politician and a public affairs commentator and also a lawyer, talking about Sunday Wugira, who's joining us live from Adamawa, and will be speaking via Zoom. Will join us via Zoom. Thank you so much, Mr. Wugira, for coming on the program. Right, it's good to see you after the last time.
The same here. Same here. Thank you.
Okay, so how are you doing and how is Adamawa?
Well, Adamawa is doing fine, and we are here on our part enjoying the dividends of good governance coming from the governor of the state, Right Honorable Ahmadu Umaru Fintri. Projects every day. We are seeing projects either being commissioned or supervised or to be completed. So for us here, so far so good.
You heard me, just stating some of the facts and some of the data that were provided for us after that election as we sat down to look at it. In that election, are we going to see something very closely related to 2023 happening in 2027? Because all of the major, at least the 4 major candidates in that election are on the ballots, except Rabiu Kwankwaso, who is on the ballots now, but in a different way. In 2023, he was on the ballot as the presidential candidate of the NNPP. Now he's on the ballot as the vice presidential candidate of the NDC. Is there similarities between the 2023 position and what we will have in 2027?
Well, looking at the trajectory and the history of our politics and voting, I would say that I am not comfortable with the way and manner the 2027 contest is going about. Most of the candidates, if you look at the way and manner they are even going about the campaigns, it's as if they are just only interested in contesting the election and not necessarily the outcome. Nigerians are not given any reason as to sit down, introspect deeply, and choose any choice that you see ultimately of any of the candidates getting the day is just a product of passion and sentiments and emotions and financial muscle, actually, not necessarily out of conviction that this candidate is better than the other, he has policies better than the other, he has programs better than the other. It is just about the candidates themselves. They are confused, and the voters themselves are also confused, most unfortunate.
On us tonight, you said it seems the candidates are confused, the voters may also be confused. I like that you do a little bit of expansion there. You clarify what you mean by candidates being confused, because we know that these candidates will present their manifesto in consonance with their party, because they have to sell a brand to Nigerians, and Nigerians will also be interrogating them and asking them questions. But that's on one end. Are there similarities between almost the same set of persons that we saw? At least I know there are many other presidential candidates, but the highly rated ones are the same persons that were available in 2023. So does it mean between 2023 to 2027 there was no leadership recruitment in Nigeria that people could look back and say, okay, let's bring this, because it's the same Peter Obi, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and Alhaji Atiku Abubakar?
Well, the truth of the matter is, you find out that the three giants, the president Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the former vice president Atiku Abubakar, the former governor of Anambra State, Peter Obi. If you look at the way and manner they are going about their campaigns, the president is sitting tight, telling everybody that he is not afraid of anyone. He is not Goodluck Jonathan. He has what it takes to take and run. You know, Atiku Abubakar, what he is saying is, I have what it takes to deliver Nigeria, to bring Nigeria out of its present predicament. Unfortunately, you find out that he keeps shifting and moving from one political party to the other, back and forth. If I were Atiku, with all due respect, between 2007 and now, I would have founded my own political party and given it an identity, an ideology, and a direction, rather than running around insisting that it is either I am the presidential candidate of this political party, or I will leave and find a place where I will be given an opportunity to contest. Peter Obi, the same thing, with all due respect, he is also towing that line. And every day it is about, I know how to do it, but there is no clear, precise, concise, and a trustworthy direction. So many a times, this kind of attitude, you just look at it from the perspective of just being a party or an electoral aristocrat. I wouldn't want to talk about the other presidential candidates from all other. If you look at it, you find out that they are just party aristocrats who are in charge of their own political parties year in, year out. Every 4 years, they contest election. They are the only presidential candidates of their own political party. You go around other states, they do not even have governorship candidates. They do not have candidates vying for state assembly or national assembly. So you begin to wonder whether these are actually very serious politicians. But like I said, we have party aristocrats whose only objective is to contest election, to be on the ballot at all times, make noise. They don't even go to the tribunal to challenge anything. They, they remain as members of IPAC, and that is all you get to hear. They sensationalize things, and after election, they fell away until another 4 years. The election year, they come up again with a lot of things. So Nigerians every day are becoming disinterested in the political activities in the country because it is contributing to the apathy that we have. The only difference between 2023 and 2027 will just be the exponential growth in votes. You know, they will try as much as possible to make sure that the winner of the election will come out with more than 10 million votes. That's the only difference that we'll have.
Thank you so much. When you talk about the fact that maybe in 2027 we'll see whoever wins will win with more than 10 million votes. That brings me to the next question I want to ask. Because in the last election, it was the states were evenly won, at least by the three major presidential candidates. Alhaji Atiku Abubakar won in 12 states. Peter Obi won in 11 states plus the FCT. We can pass that for 12 states. Then Bola Tinubu won in 12 states. So that was a very closely contested election, if you look at that statistics. Is that what will be happening in 2027? Are we going to see that kind of close? I remember at the time, Peter Obi didn't have any governor, but he was able to win elections in 12 states. And Alhaji Atiku Abubakar had some governors in the PDP, about 12 of them at the time. He was able to win in 12 states. And now the PDP does not, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar does not have that luxury in the ADC rather, and even the PDP doesn't really have that luxury. The ADC, how many governors do they have, right? So are we going to see that kind of, closely contested states domination where people had their catchment area? Okay, all of the Southeast won hands down by Peter Obi. You go to the South, he was able to scrabble some states also in the South. In the Middle Belt, he also was able to scrabble some states. The same thing with Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. In the Northeast, he won a few states in the Northeast. In the North Central, was able to grab a few of the states in the North Central and picked a few states in the Northwest. Alhaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu, our president, the Southwest almost swept the Southwest, except where Atiku had some upsets. Then went to the South, the Northeast, did very well there, went to the Northwest, did very well there, and was able to get 25% vote in the South and the Southwest. Are we going to see that kind of closely contested election, or will it just be an election where the scale will be tilting towards one candidate more than the rest of the contenders?
It won't be as close as 2023 in 2027. One, you see, if you look at the litigation that is bedeviling or that has bedeviled ADC as a political party, it started as a coalition. It would have pulled a major surprise in 2027 if they had remained together. Peter Obi, Kwankwaso, all the others coming together and remaining in ADC with Atiku and the rest of them. Assuredly, even the president himself was scared because it was fear that pushed him to say, I am not afraid, you know. But that fear factor is no longer there. The balkanization of ADC into some going to NDC, some going to Labour, back to Labour, some going to PRP, and the rest. Already the coalition has been weakened. And it is not going to be as close as it was. Perception. The people now are left with the perception that even if we vote for ADC, we are just wasting our time and votes at the same time, because eventually the litigation will take them off the ballot. You have seen some other mushroom organizations and individuals also going to court challenging the registration of NDC. They may not win at the end of the day, but that perception also is hovering over the political party that, look, let us not go and waste. And it is weakening the spirit of Nigerians every day. This is another form of rigging. When you create a sense of melancholy and apathy in voters, that they feel votes don't count. In fact, the result has already been prepared, waiting for announcement by INEC. You know, that thinking is what is affecting what will ultimately decide the outcome of the election. And the opposition leaders are not doing anything to ginger Nigerians, to galvanize Nigerians, to move Nigerians, to embolden Nigerians, to lift up the spirit that, yes, we can make the difference, we can do it, and we can relieve 2015, you know. If you look at the widespread insecurity, that is also a factor. A lot of people may not come out to vote for fear of their lives, and may not travel home to vote for fear of their life. May not. So there are so many factors. And the beneficiary of all these negativities is the incumbent president.
In 2003, right, we had 80.60, let me take the data again. In 2003, our registered voters, we had 60.8 million registered voters. Votes casted during the elections, we had 39.5. So 65% of Nigeria's of registered voters in that election in 2003 came out to vote. Right. In 2007,
Yes.
61.6 million were the total registered voters in Nigeria. We had 35.4 million coming out to vote. That was 57% of the registered voters. In 1999, we had 57.9 million registered voters, and 30.3 million voted in that election. That's a 1999 election. And 52% voted. In 2011, we had 73.5 million registered voters. 38.2 million voted in the election, and that was 52%. In 2015, recently, we had 67.4 million registered voters, 28.6 million coming out to vote. That was 42% of the population. In 2019, we had 84.0 million people registered to get their PVCs. But voters who came out to vote, we had 28.6 million. That was 34 million people voting in that election. But in 2023, the last election, we had over 93.47 million registered voters. But the total vote count was only about 24.9 million, and that was a paltry 26.7%. So even though we had more young persons come out to vote in that election, the 2023 election was actually the lowest turnout of voters in, if you are looking at percentage of registered voters in the country, all since the return to democracy. So it was the lowest turnout of registered voters to vote in a national election in Nigeria since the return to democracy. So it was just a paltry 26.7 million people that voted in that election. So I'll just read only the percentage of people that, the percentage of voters in different elections. We had 65% in 2003, 57% in 2007, 52% in 1999, 52% in 2011, 42% in 2015, 34% in 2019, and 2023 we have just 26%. So if you look at this, it's coming down, from 65 to 26. Why are Nigerians not voting in the general elections?
It is all about the perception being created and shoved down the minds of Nigerians. And over the years, you'll find out that from 1999 to 2023, every election comes with its peculiarities. From 2015, insecurity has been defining our election. And in 2015, bear witness with me that particularly in the Northeast, almost 60% of voters that voted during the 2015 election voted in IDP camps in the Northeast. So that is telling you something. In 2019, when the crisis from the Northeast spread to the Northwest and the North Central, the Southeast had its own peculiar challenge, in the sense that the IPOB scared voters from coming out to vote. And if you look at largely most of the voters that are staying away from polls during election from this period, 2015, 2019, 2023, you find out that ordinarily they would not vote a certain or a particular political party. So when you create an atmosphere where a certain group of people are kept away from voting for one reason or the other, you've succeeded in even making your work easier. I am afraid the 2027 election, there may be an increase in voter turnout, but it is not going to be across board. It is going to be in certain urban areas, or certain rural areas, and they may not necessarily be actually human beings. They may be ghost voters, or some kind of manipulation. And when these things are happening, you get to realize that politics is being militarized, poverty is being weaponized, and insecurity is being institutionalized, because some certain groups are benefiting from these ills that is spreading. And when you sit down and you look at some other variables, when people are saying that you cannot go to school, you cannot go to school, you cannot go to school. What is the negativity that going to school is creating? That some people will come and say that going to school is evil, like the Boko Haram insurgents that are insisting that school is not good for everyone, school must be closed, education. We do not have, I want to borrow the words of Goodluck Jonathan, former president, that Boko Haram, different groups and variables. There are those in power. When you don't make every conscious and concrete step to ensure that every of your citizens are given education, quality education, you know you are promoting something. And if you look at the educational trajectory and projections in Nigeria from the Ali Must Go riots in 1979, was it 78 or 79? You find out that the prospect of education for all across Nigeria has been going down. But, we are not a people that are so much bothered about statistics and asking questions. And today, we have more certificated illiterates than we have educated people in Nigeria. And what we are seeing translating into voting.
And insecurity has been one of the factors. And if we look at truly from 2015, we've had increase in insecurity issues. But you talked about IPOB, being an issue in the southeast at the time. And I think IPOB has been usually contained by the Nigerian Armed Forces and by the federal government. Why has the government not been able to contain it in other places? Because this will form one of the prominent discourse points as we move towards 2027. A lot of politicians will be speaking about insecurity issues and how they hope to offer and profile solutions to those issues. So why have the government not been able to tackle the banditry, the cattle rustling, the way they've kidnapping, the way they've tackled IPOB issue in the southeast has been largely, brought down to a very low. It's not as loud as it was, but terrorism seems to be expanding. But there are two narratives that we are hearing. We've heard some people say that this is being sponsored by the opposition in order to run down the government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu. That argument has been advanced by some persons in some quarters. We've also heard the part where the opposition have said that security issue shows a total failure of the government. We even attended and to cover, protests where some persons have called that Tinubu will be removed because he has failed as far as security is concerned. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Is it sponsored or is it failure of government? And why have government not been able to fix the security over the years?
I want you to look at the IPOB issue from this perspective. IPOB is talking about succession, removing itself from Nigeria, a whole region being taken away. And you know what that means. The economic value, the concomitant effect of allowing that to happen. The government of President Muhammadu Buhari had to go to the extra mile after giving after giving Nnamdi Kanu bail, granting him bail, and he jumped bail, so to say. They went the extra mile and got him arrested from another country and brought him back to Nigeria, and today he is serving jail term. But as I would say, as sophisticated, as exposed as Nnamdi Kanu was, and even outside of Nigeria, he got arrested. He was brought back. He faced judgment, and he was tried and sentenced. But a miscreant who lives in the jungle, Bello Turji, some of these miscreants disturbing people around the northwest and the northeast. None of them has ever been arrested. They will sit down, say all manner of things on video and post on YouTube and all the social media platforms. Let me give you an example of the former minister of power that was arrested in Rigasa in Kaduna, hiding in his own house because someone is interested in his going to jail. There are so many things. Government can never exculpate itself from responsibility and liability with regards to the insecurity issue. And sometimes when you hear students are abducted and things like that, at the end of the day, you hear stories that somebody has given armed soldiers orders that they must clear the way so that abduction can take place. And no investigation, proper investigation will be conducted to come out with a policy statement that yes, we have conducted investigation on this allegation, and we found out that there is no truth whatsoever in it. Government itself is not taking things the way they should. And unfortunately, the people themselves are not holding the government accountable.
Government seem to be complicit in, being very serious with this fight. But I'd like to ask about your state, Adamawa. On the ballot, we have Senator Abo, who is running on the platform of the Labour Party. The ADC has Aisha Binani, who is also running. Tell me about the political atmosphere in Adamawa as of today.
Well, in Adamawa State, actually, I would not want to talk about the personalities on certain political platforms. In Adamawa State, at the moment, and this is the general opinion, a lot of people may not be comfortable with this, but I am telling you, come to Adamawa State and find out. Before now, a lot of people were skeptical about Galadima as the candidate of the APC. But people are asking questions about and getting to know his kind of person. Yes, the process that brought him, there are complaints, and that is normal. But people are beginning to accept him at the moment. This is the reality in Adamawa State. Some other people will not want a situation where we will have a governor that every day, instead of having news that will promote the state in terms of development, we end up with only scandals. A lot of issues. And I'm telling you, whoever that is here will know that the narrative is changing. Some people are just contestants on social media. That is within their rights. But when the votes come out, or when you undertake a study of the terrain, the acceptance of candidates, the rate at which they are going, you get to realize that, yes, there are changes. Sometimes you look at the credibility, the personality, the pedigree, the integrity, the exposure, the experience of, of, of candidates, their temperaments, their disposition. These are things that will help in choices. In Adamawa State, we are mostly a sophisticated people politically, and uh, across board, there is a kind of an understanding. If you look at what happened in 2023, despite the armada of forces against the governor of Adamawa State, Right Honorable Amadou Umaru Fintiri, to ensure that he was never given the opportunity to come back as governor for the second time. But because people realized, they came and defended their vote against all the powers, including INEC itself. So I am telling you, the politics of Adamawa State is different in the sense that a greater majority of the voters are elected.
In 2023, ran with the goodwill of his political godfather, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar's goodwill. And now Atiku is in the ADC. Your governor is of the APC. Governor Fintiri, who was the chairman of the PDP Convention Planning Committee at Ibadan, even though that convention has been cancelled by the Supreme Court of Nigeria. Do you think that the APC stands a chance, knowing that Atiku is very formidable and Adamawa happens to be his home? So he should be able to deliver his home. He's a presidential candidate.
Well, the political realism that a lot of people do not understand is the fact that, yes, Atiku, whether you like him or you don't like him, he is a factor in Adamawa. But you see, as an entity, as an individual, he cannot deliver Adamawa State to himself. It is coalition of people that always come together to deliver him in Adamawa State. Looking at the trajectories and the realities on ground now, everything has changed, And when everything has changed, you have to look at it also differently, because things are different now than they were in 2023. He won. Yes, he won in 2020. I didn't get you, pardon?
I said, what are those things that are different? You say things are different.
Yes, things are different. Now, the governorship candidate of his political party, ADC, I don't even know him. I am in Adamawa State. I don't know him. As exposed, I don't know the governorship candidate of
You say you don't know who?
ADC. I don't know the governorship candidate of ADC as it is today in Adamawa State. Yes. So if the
It was the second largest turnout of registered voters, not just turnout, voting of registered voters. That election had 61.6 million registered voters. 35.4 million people casted votes, and about 57% of the total number of registered voters. 1999 comes third on the list with 57.9 million registered voters in that election. 30.3 million registered voters voted in the election, and that was about 52%. If you're looking at percentage, 2011 follows closely with 73.5 million registered voters, and in that election 38.2 million registered voters voted, and that was also 52%. In 2015 we had 67.4 million registered voters, and 28.6 million registered voters voted, and that was low, but it was still 42, at least something Nigerians could look up for. 42% voted in that election. And 2019 got worse, when we had 84 million registered voters, but only 28.6 million came out to vote in that election, and a paltry 34% voted. But the worst was 2023 general election. In that election, with the whole youthful exuberance that was put into the election, the whole young persons, first-time voters, a lot of new voters coming out to vote in that election, the 2023 general election is the lowest participation in terms of registered voters in an election in Nigeria's current history. We had 93.47 million registered voters in that election. Only 24.9 million people voted all across Nigeria, and we had only 26.7%. So out of 100% of persons who got their PVCs, only 26.7 voted in the 2027 general election. But there are two theories to this. Some persons have said, when we look at the 1999, 2003 and the rest of it, are we sure that the numbers that were announced were actually Nigerians who voted? Was it not some persons were doing double thumb printing, that from 2015, with the beavers, it became very difficult to queue in votes? So some persons have brought that, but whatever it was, that was the number of people who registered to get their PVCs. It was actually very low, the number of Nigerians who came out. Out of 93.47 million people who registered to get PVCs, only 24 million came out to vote in that election. But we have to end the program now, and I'll end with an appeal. Please make sure that you have your PVC, and make sure that when elections come, you participate by voting. This is your right to choosing a leader that Nigerians will all be proud of. My name is Ubong Usoro. But before I leave, remember, this is our country. We must love this country and contribute to the growth and development of the country. Bye for now.
Politics decides our economy. Politics shapes our security. Politics defines our future. But who is asking the hard question?
Is intimidating governors to our opposition, and some allegations even say monies are offered to the tune of billions of naira to these governors to come to the APC.
On Big Talk, we take politics beyond party lines and press statements. We interrogate policies, challenge power,
and it shall be addressed.
and demand accountability from those who govern, from the presidency to the National Assembly, from state governments to grassroots politics. We break down the decisions that affect your daily life. No propaganda, no political comfort zone, just facts, context, and fearless conversations. Big Talk is where leaders explain, analysts dissect, and the people understand.
2015 elections were not held. They are doing rigging.
Don't just watch politics, question it. Tune in to Big Talk on Global Television every weekday from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Join the conversation.